415 Northeast Regional out of Philly was my sanctuary. 27 years of teaching high school English had etched lines around my eyes and a quiet resignation in my bones, especially since Harold passed 5 years ago. At 54, predictability was my armor. The worn velour seat, the rhythmic clatter of the tracks, the predictable parade of commuters, it was a lullaby against the world's noise. Until he got on in Wilmington. He looked like any other young professional escaping the city grind, mid-30s, maybe, dark hair neatly combed, wearing a charcoal overcoat over a suit that screamed mid-level management. He took the seat diagonally across the aisle, pulling out a sleek laptop. But his eyes, they scanned the carriage with a precision that felt like a physical touch, lingering on exits, assessing faces, before settling on the screen. It wasn't paranoia, it was calculation. I knew the look of practiced observation. Harold had been a detective. He spilled his coffee. Not dramatically, just a clumsy nudge as the train lurched. Dark liquid surged across his tray table, threatening his keyboard. Instinct kicked in before widow's practicality could stop me. I thrust my wad of napkins, always carried extras, towards him. "Here," I said, my voice raspier than usual. Crisis aversion. He looked up, startled. Those eyes, a startlingly clear gray, locked onto mine. A flicker of surprise, then a warm, genuine smile that crinkled the corners. "You're a lifesaver." Literally saving the quarterly reports. His voice was smooth, deeper than expected, with a faint, unplaceable accent beneath the educated American tone. "Eleanor," I offered, feeling absurdly flustered. "Daniel," he replied, mopping efficiently. "Daniel Vance. Headed to New York. Just visiting my sister in Newark." A partial truth. The lie felt thick. Why lie about Newark? That was the first crack. We talked. Or rather, I talked, surprised by my own volubility. He asked questions about teaching, about Philadelphia, about books, with an intensity that felt flattering, not intrusive. He listened like my words were the most fascinating code he'd ever decrypted. He claimed he worked in risk mitigation for a multinational. Vague, my inner Harold whispered. His hand brushed mine, returning the soggy napkins. A jolt, electric and entirely inappropriate, shot up my arm. He was 30, maybe 32. I was 54. The math was laughable. Mortifying. Yet, the miles melted. We shared a dry sandwich from the cafe car. He made me laugh, a real, rusty sound I hadn't heard from myself in years. He quoted Neruda, badly but charmingly. He noticed the small silver locket Harold gave me, asked about it with quiet respect. When the train slowed for Newark, a pang of loss surprised me. "Maybe," he said, leaning slightly across the aisle as I gathered my bag, "if your sister ever bores you, we could grab a coffee? Next time you're heading into the city? Or I could get off here?" His gray eyes held mine, earnest, a question hanging in the air. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. Stupid, Eleanor. Dangerous. But the loneliness of my quiet apartment, the empty space beside me on the couch, yawned wide. "Coffee," I breathed. "Next time. Into the city." I scribbled my number on a torn corner of a student essay draft. His fingers brushed mine again as he took it. The contact lingered. The secrecy started small, easily rationalized. Our first coffee in a bustling Penn Station cafe. He was 10 minutes late, breathless, a faint scratch healing near his hairline he dismissed as a gym accident. Client meetings run over, he'd wave it off, his smile dazzling but his eyes scanning the room constantly. He never talked about specific colleagues, only vague teams. His phone buzzed incessantly with short, coded messages he'd glance at and dismiss. The romance was breathtaking. He made me feel seen, alive, in a way I'd forgotten possible. He brought me wildflowers, saw them by the tracks and thought of you. He kissed me under the awning of a deli in a sudden downpour, his arms strong and sure around me, chasing away decades of chill. He listened to my stories about Harold, about teaching teenagers sonnets, with genuine interest. He made me feel beautiful, desirable, not despite my age, but somehow, because of the life etched onto my face. It was intoxicating. Dangerous. The violence seeped in gradually, like ink in water. One Tuesday evening, we met at a quiet Greenwich Village bar. He was tense, jumpier than usual. Mid-sentence, his eyes snapped to the entrance. Two men in nondescript jackets walked in, radiating an aura of coiled tension. Daniel's hand clamped over mine on the table. Eleanor, his voice was low, urgent, stripped of all warmth. Listen to me. When I say now, you walk straight out the back exit to the kitchen, turn right, go out the alley, and don't look back. Get a cab. Go home. Do you understand? Fear, cold and sharp, pricked my skin. Daniel, what? Do you understand? The command was absolute, leaving no room for argument. I nodded, numb. The men approached. One slid into the booth opposite. Words were exchanged, too low for me to hear, but the menace was palpable. The air crackled. Suddenly, Daniel moved. It wasn't a brawl, it was terrifying efficiency. A blur of motion. A sharp, sickening crack as his elbow connected with the first man's jaw. A grunt as he drove his knee into the second man's gut. It was brutal, clinical, over in seconds. The attackers slumped, stunned. Daniel's face was a mask of cold fury I'd never seen. No, Eleanor, he hissed. I fled. My legs trembled. The alley smelled of garbage and rain. I fumbled for my phone, hands shaking. He called 10 minutes later, voice tight but controlled. Are you safe? At home? Yes. Daniel, who were they? What happened? Business rivals. Overzealous. It's handled. I'm sorry you saw that. The apology felt inadequate, a band-aid on a gushing wound. Risk mitigation, he'd called his job. The reality was stark, violent, and terrifyingly real. That night, lying alone in my bed, the scent of the bar's stale beer and the memory of that sickening crack filled the dark. The secrecy wasn't just about vague jobs, it was a shield against a world where knees met guts and elbows shattered jaws. The cracks became chasms. He'd vanish for days. No calls, no texts. My messages would sit unanswered, unread. Then he'd reappear, sometimes bearing gifts, sometimes bearing fresh bruises hidden beneath his collar, exhaustion etched deep in his face. Explanations were sparse, unsatisfying, blackout zone. Sensitive operation. Couldn't risk it. The loneliness during those silences was profound, a physical ache. Who was I loving? Daniel Vance, the charming man who loved Neruda and wildflowers? Or the ghost who moved like lightning and left bruises on the world? The intimacy became bittersweet. Touching the scar tissue on his shoulder, feeling the ridge of a healed fracture along his ribcage, they were maps to a life I could never navigate. He'd flinch at sudden noises. Once, asleep beside me, he bolted upright, eyes wild, hand reaching instinctively beneath the pillow before recognition flooded back. He'd pull me close then, burying his face in my hair, murmuring apologies. The romance was tangled in barbed wire. The final fracture happened after a rare, perfect weekend. 2 days locked away in a borrowed cabin upstate. Just us, a crackling fire, tangled sheets, and the illusion of normalcy. We laughed. We cooked terrible pasta. We walked in the woods, his hand warm in mine, the gray eyes soft. For those hours, the secrecy felt like a distant storm. Driving back towards the city, reality seeped back in. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his face hardening. "Eleanor," he said, pulling over onto a quiet service road. The setting sun bled orange across the dashboard. "I have to go. Now." Something critical. The familiar dread pulled in my stomach. Where? For how long? I can't say. It could be a while. He wouldn't meet my eyes. It's getting complicated. Dangerous. He reached across, cupping my face. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. "What we have, it matters. You matter. More than you know." His voice was raw. "But this life, it consumes everything it touches. I can't drag you deeper into the undertow." He kissed me. It tasted like goodbye, like salt and desperation and wildflowers crushed underfoot. Then he was gone, slipping out of the car, melting into the twilight towards a waiting, unmarked sedan I hadn't even noticed. He didn't look back. 3 months. 92 days of silence. 92 days of jumping at the phone, scanning news reports for unexplained violence or industrial accidents, staring at the wilting wildflowers I'd pressed in a book. 92 days of living in the agonizing limbo of not knowing. Was he dead? Captured? Or had he simply chosen the shadows over the complications of a middle-aged English teacher? The secrecy was absolute now, a suffocating void. Then, yesterday, a single text. No name. Just coordinates. And a time, 4:15 p.m. Penn Station. Track 7 West. My heart hasn't stopped pounding since. The familiar rhythm of the 4:15 regional feels like the drumbeat of fate. My palms are slick against the velour seat. I'm clutching my bag like a life preserver. The red scarf he once said looked like courage is knotted tightly at my throat. The train slows, brakes hissing. Newark slides past the window, a blur of brick and graffiti. The platform at Penn Station approaches, crowded, chaotic. And there he is. Standing near the pillar by track 7 West, just like the coordinates. Daniel. He looks older. Thinner. A new scar, a thin white line, bisects his left eyebrow. He's wearing a dark peacoat, collar turned up, but not enough to hide the tension in his jaw, the constant scan of the crowd. His gray eyes sweep across the disembarking passengers and find mine. The world narrows. The roar of the station fades to a dull hum. His eyes widen, a flicker of relief? Pain? Hope? Terror? It's all there, swirling in that storm gray. He takes a half step forward. His hand lifts slightly, an aborted gesture. Come to me? Stay back? I can't tell. I step off the train. The platform concrete is solid beneath my sensible shoes. The distance between us is maybe 30 feet. It feels like a chasm filled with everything unsaid, every bruise, every vanished day, every whispered word of poetry, every terrifying moment of violence witnessed and imagined. My feet feel rooted. One step towards him is a step into his shadow world, a world of sudden disappearances, coded messages, and the ever-present threat of violence glimpsed in alleyways. A world where love is measured in stolen moments and lived under the specter of loss. It's a world I never asked for, a world that terrifies me. But staying here, on this platform, stepping back onto the predictable 4:15 heading home to my quiet, empty apartment that feels like a different kind of death. The death of possibility. The death of feeling that terrifying, exhilarating spark. He doesn't move closer. He waits. He knows the choice is mine. The weight of 54 years, of loss, of hard-won stability, presses down on one shoulder. The memory of his touch, his laugh in the rain, the way he made the world feel vibrantly, dangerously alive, pulls at the other. The station announcer's voice booms, distorted. Amtrak Acela service now boarding on track 7 west. Daniel's gaze intensifies. Track 7 west. His coordinates. Is it just a meeting point? Or is it a train? A way out? A way into the unknown? He lifts his hand again, palm open. Not a command this time. An invitation. Or is it a warning? His gray eyes hold mine, reflecting the harsh fluorescent lights, the swirling crowd, the impossible crossroads where we stand. My breath hitches. The red scarf feels tight. The train doors hiss behind me. Ambiguous ending. Eleanor's choice is unspoken. The roar of the station crowds, the screech of another arriving train, the distorted echo of the boarding announcement, it all folds into a single, deafening pulse in my ears. 30 feet. Daniel's open hand. The promise of chaos. The guarantee of silence. My sensible shoe lifts. Just an inch. Does it shift forward, towards the gray eyes and the scar and the terrifying unknown? Or does it pivot back, towards the hissing doors of the train, the worn velour seat, the sanctuary of predictable loneliness? I meet his gaze. A lifetime of reading subtext in literature, of understanding the weight of a pause, crashes into the raw, unreadable reality of his face. There's love there, I think. Or maybe just desperation. Need. A reflection of my own terrifying hunger. The Acela doors on track 7 west sigh open. A wave of purposeful passengers surges towards it. My foot hangs suspended. The platform vibrates. The red scarf at my throat feels like the only spot of color in a suddenly monochrome world. His hand remains outstretched, a question etched in the air between us.